At 36, unmarried, some might assume I've missed my prime, but that's a limited perspective on life. My sister Kathleen, ever the center of attention, is quick to boast at a family gathering in our backyard about her wealthy, handsome, and intelligent husband, drawing curious stares from the guests. Given our shared upbringing, I can understand why they look puzzled. Kathleen's dominance has always been a part of my life, and as the elder sibling, I was taught to bear it quietly. But today, I've reached my breaking point, and I refuse to remain silent any longer. I'm Amy Catherine, a 36-year-old woman who left my career in medical administration to focus on raising my 3-year-old daughter. While being a stay-at-home mom has its challenges, nothing compares to the joy I feel when I await Janet's return from kindergarten and Michael's arrival from work. "Amy, I'm home," Michael greets us as he walks through the door. He's an attentive father and supportive partner, always willing to step in so I can have a break. Although I'm not working outside the home, he makes sure I have time away from household tasks. Janet, a budding artist, loves drawing family portraits, which she eagerly shows her father. His praise lights up her face, and that moment of happiness is something I treasure. Then, one day, a call from an unfamiliar number interrupts our routine. It's Kathleen, with whom I've had no contact for 12 years. She coldly informs me of our grandmother's passing and insists I attend the funeral. Her tone is sharp, and she throws in a veiled jab about my lifestyle, suggesting she's been keeping tabs on me through social media. Despite the years of estrangement, her words have no power over me. I've found contentment in my own life, outside of society's narrow expectations of wealth and marriage, cherishing the family I've built and the simple joys we share. Kathleen's final words carry a cruel hint of pleasure, as if she's anticipating my loneliness in the future. Her laughter, barely concealed, sparks a flash of memories, those moments of mockery that used to hurt. But before I can respond, she ends the call abruptly. Kathleen and I were raised in a privileged household, guided by our strict grandfather and caring grandmother. Our father, loyal to my grandfather's authority, and our mother, ever seeking approval, created a home defined by tension and favoritism. Kathleen, looking more like our father, was always favored, while I, resembling our mother, found affection from her and our grandmother. But in a patriarchal family, being the second choice came with its own burdens. Kathleen's wants were always prioritized, and as the older sibling, I was expected to bear it all in silence. From toys to preferences, Kathleen's demands were always met. As early as I can remember, I was overshadowed by her privileges. She attended an exclusive private school, while I went to the local public high school. She had a chauffeur and a social life that excluded me. I remember one day, finding her and her friends having tea in the garden and being swiftly dismissed. The hierarchy in our house was clear. Kathleen's wishes came first. Kathleen, spoiled and indulged, had a cruel streak, but she always kept up the appearance of the perfect granddaughter in front of our grandparents and father. After high school, determined to find my own way, I worked hard and enrolled in a vocational school for medical administration. That's where I met Brian, a promising young doctor in training. We grew close, shared meals, and began to build something, though neither of us was bold enough to take the next step. During a rare visit home, I confided in my mother about Brian. Just as I was sharing my hopes, Kathleen appeared. Normally, she'd avoid any interaction with me, but now, she was all smiles and questions about my love life. Though our relationship had been strained, I longed for reconciliation, and Kathleen's newfound interest, coupled with my mother's encouragement, gave me hope. I shared my story of Brian with them, and soon after, he and I became an official couple. Kathleen, eager to be part of my life for once, asked to meet him. I hoped this meant a new chapter in our relationship. But the dream of sisterly bonds was shattered when Kathleen betrayed me. She pursued Brian, and our engagement ended in heartbreak. Brian, who had once promised me a future, suddenly broke things off, leaving me reeling and confused. When I visited my parents' home to seek answers, I was faced with the painful reality: Kathleen and Brian were together. Kathleen's cold call, devoid of any remorse, left me to process the betrayal alone. Sitting in the rain on a park bench, this marked a turning point for me, making me question the very foundation of trust and family. Kathleen's casual admission that she had pursued Brian, convinced she was more deserving because of her looks, echoed the entitlement she'd always shown. I always wanted to meet someone like him first, she had claimed, her selfishness laid bare. Their secret meetings, their intimacy, it all felt like a violation of something sacred. and her cruel justification made it worse. She thought she was the one who deserved him. In response, I made drastic changes. I changed my number, moved out of my apartment, and found a new job. Severing ties with Kathleen and my family was painful, but necessary for my peace of mind. However, when she reached out through social media, trying to appear concerned in a public post, I felt the wounds reopen. Her actions were condescending, pushing me toward the desire for retribution. Yet, when I attended our grandmother's funeral, I held my ground. Kathleen's mockery continued, comparing our lives, flaunting her seemingly perfect existence with Brian, who couldn't even look me in the eye. When she introduced her son, Arthur, it was a painful reminder of the life I had once envisioned with Brian. But when Michael arrived with Janet in tow, it was clear how far I had come. Michael, now the youngest director at the hospital where Brian worked, represented the stability and success I had built for myself and my family. The look of surprise and envy on Kathleen's face, when she realized the life I had created, was the moment I had been waiting for. Her attempts to belittle me and highlight her own life backfired, revealing her insecurities and the emptiness of her triumphs. My journey had led me to real happiness, built on love, respect, and family, something Kathleen would never understand. In the end, it was clear, the life I had forged for myself, with Michael and Janet, was worth more than anything Kathleen could ever boast about. At our grandmother's funeral, surrounded by the love I had cultivated, I knew that despite the betrayals and hardships, I had found something far more valuable than her superficial success, and that was a victory in itself. I wore the wedding rings Michael and I had exchanged, not on our fingers but on necklaces, a practical solution when Janet was younger to keep her from fiddling with them. This quiet display of love and unity, however, went unnoticed by Kathleen. She couldn't understand how someone like me, whom she always saw as less desirable, could be so happy and successful. During one of Kathleen's tirades, Brian stepped in, sternly reprimanding her for her rudeness. He expressed his respect for Michael and me, signaling a shift in the dynamics of our relationships. For the first time, he showed genuine remorse for Kathleen's behavior, a small but significant turning point. The funeral provided the backdrop for some difficult but necessary revelations. It was here that I introduced Michael and Janet to my parents. My mother was visibly happy to see us, while my father's stoic demeanor remained unchanged, still loyal to the favoritism he'd always shown Kathleen. Despite my mother's hopes for more frequent visits, the complexities of our family made that promise difficult to keep. Afterward, I braced myself for the inevitable social media posts from Kathleen. As expected, she posted a photo of Janet, trying to paint a picture of an overly friendly encounter. She manipulated the situation for her own image, twisting the reality of our strained relationship. I was frustrated, especially when Kathleen fabricated stories about autographs to further her narrative. Rather than engaging directly with her, I took to the Jane Leon channel, our family's platform, to address the situation thoughtfully. I clarified that the photo had been shared without our consent, debunked her autograph claim, and stressed the importance of respecting online privacy. Janet and I also created a video about internet safety, educating children on the importance of obtaining permission before sharing someone else's image. The response was overwhelmingly positive, and it reinforced the value of teaching young internet users about digital respect. Kathleen, unbothered by her account suspension, created a new profile and reached out to me. Her message, lacking any remorse, was entitled and dismissive of her actions. She argued that familial ties should grant her the right to exploit Janet's image for her own benefit. This sense of entitlement left me exasperated. In my response, I advised her to be honest in her online behavior and to respect boundaries, but she brushed off my comments, ironically claiming I was the one intruding on her life. Kathleen continued to build an online persona, curating an image of a vibrant and fulfilling life, but the cracks in her facade began to show. A former classmate from her prestigious school contacted me, revealing that Kathleen had been manipulating her friends for years, pressuring them to host parties and allow her into their private spaces to maintain her social status. This ally's revelation opened my eyes to the broader scope of Kathleen's manipulation, which extended far beyond our family dynamics. As Kathleen's actions were exposed, her social circle began to shrink. Her once popular posts started to reflect her isolation, a stark contrast to the vibrant image she'd tried to project. Meanwhile, at home, I noticed subtle changes in Michael's behavior. He started arriving home late, and I sensed tension at the hospital that no one was willing to address. Despite my attempts to lighten the mood, something was clearly amiss. It didn't take long for the cause of the unrest to become clear. Michael, with a grave tone, explained that Brian, Kathleen's husband, had been involved in a significant medical error. His attempt to cover it up, along with his poor attitude, had led to his dismissal from the hospital. This not only affected Brian's career but also created turbulence in Kathleen's family life. The drama culminated when my mother, having been distanced from my father's influence, reached out with news that brought everything full circle. Kathleen's marriage to Brian had fallen apart after his professional mishap, and they had divorced. Kathleen, once the center of attention, had been disowned by our family due to her actions. The consequences of her manipulative behavior had finally caught up with her. This series of events, while painful, underscored the importance of integrity and accountability. Kathleen's fall from grace, mirrored by Brian's professional collapse, was a stark reminder of the consequences of deceit and manipulation. On the other hand, the solidarity shown by her former friends, who stood up to her, provided some hope, showing that fairness and honesty still have a place in the world. But the ripple effects didn't end there. Kathleen's son, Arthur, was placed in a care facility due to the financial instability and emotional turmoil caused by his parents' actions. My father, always partial to Kathleen, had been unable to offer him a home. Instead, he and my mother provided financial support to the facility, choosing to remain anonymous in their assistance. My mother, tearfully acknowledging the role she had played in spoiling Kathleen, expressed regret over her daughter's behavior. Despite this, I made it clear that I needed to keep some distance from the family drama to preserve the peace in my own life. In a rare moment of lightness, Michael suggested we take Janet to an amusement park. Her excitement was palpable as she eagerly talked about riding the roller coaster. We planned to capture those moments on camera, but in a sweet display of protectiveness, Janet declared she didn't want the world to know just how adorable her mommy was, fearing the attention it might attract. Michael, fully agreeing, joined her in keeping our family life private, reinforcing the loving bond we shared. In that simple, happy moment, I realized how much we had grown and how deeply I cherished the life Michael, Janet, and I had built together. Despite the turmoil of the past, it was the present that truly mattered, a life filled with love, respect, and happiness, far removed from the chaos Kathleen had created.